Hello, I'm Roger Miles and this is the Battersea hoard. About 6 years ago I took 500 doll's house pieces that my mother used to own. They were in her 4 doll's houses and 1 shop, and thought I'd make it into a brilliant art piece. I'd have them floating in suspension in translucent wax, and everyone would be very excited about it, but unfortunately when I did it, it just turned into a block of wax. You couldn't see any of the 500 pieces, so I put it to one side as a failure. And 6 years later I took it to college. Thought about throwing it away a few times, but didn't quite get around to that either. When I got it into college, I just one day started to excavate it. One of my art colleagues lent me her dentist tool set, and before you knew it, I'd started to develop a fictive archaeological dig. I like to call it the Battersea hoard. That's where college is based, the Royal College of Art, and it's been a pretty absorbing, rather emotional insight into my mother's collection of doll's houses. So the Battersea hoard, how did I classify, categorise the finds? Well, I initially started off by using the traditional Western European archaeological timeline, starting with the Iron Age, Bronze Age, moving through the Roman period, medieval period, and then to modern industrial, and I also had a section about the future. But as I started to look at that classification, I realised it might be better to classify them into either the houses they were in, but more around the sort of what they represent, the finds. So I've ended up with the House of Memories, the House of Fun, House of Desire, House of Strange, and the House of Giants. And what I'd like to do is take you through a number of the finds, just tell you the stories that are attached to them. I hope you find it interesting. The first house, the House of Memories, maybe start off with this very small photograph. It's of me, probably age 6. It's interesting that I'd find that tucked away in a doll's house, but also there's a framed picture of my youngest brother Colin, and if you can see that, he gets a frame, and that's quite emotional really to find those tucked away. I'm still digging, so I still probably will find a picture of Stuart, my middle brother, and hopefully of my dad. Anyway, I wanted to really sort of talk you through this piece. This is a silver-plated candle snuffer. Nothing particularly unusual in that. Obviously it's not the right scale for the doll's house, but it's got on it Concorde. This was what passengers on Concorde were given in the, I think, the mid-90s. I was lucky enough to travel on it as part of a work project. We did 2 days in New York and back again. But my mum was always fascinated as to why British Airways would celebrate its supersonic plane with a silver-plated candle snuffer. All I can think of is maybe that looks like the front of the Concorde, but maybe not. What else in the House of Memories? Maybe this is the other one. This is a replica of a Swan Vestas box of matches. All of these things are handmade by various craftsmen. My mum would go to craft fairs and pick up various objects. Also her friend David Ringwood made houses, and I think he also made some of the contents. So some of this could be a David Ringwood piece. Yeah, but this reminds me of a very funny story about my father. He was involved in building the Scout hut in Sidcup, and was involved one day in putting the tiles, one of the final pieces of putting the tiles down on the floor. Complained that he'd lost his box of matches somewhere, but couldn't find them, and over the years one of these tiles started to reveal this oblong shape of a box of matches. So we always liked the idea that my dad was so distracted, or tired probably, in putting down the floor, that he totally missed the fact that he was tiling over his box of matches, but there was a memorial to his efforts in building the scout hut. So moving on to the House of Fun, there's some interesting kitchen tools here, a meat cleaver, a knife. What's interesting is that just the attention to detail in terms of the craftsmanship used. And there looks to be a different metal for the handle as for the blade, and even the handle looks as if they put wear onto it. Rather lovely. For some reason we've got two sort of Botticelli cherubs. I think my mum always liked that painting. And a Christmas tree, no decorations on this one, but my mum would assiduously collect decorations over the years. She always really liked to choose an angel each year. We've got an angel here, obviously not quite the right scale, but see, it's rather lovely. That would have been one of her treasured possessions, I would imagine. And you can see there's a tortoise with a moving head in the actual digs, still not fully excavated, but a snake in a pot. She'd like that sort of thing. And then various Christmas elves and snowman. And a couple of, I think one of her friends, Richard Pearce's dad, used to make hats, and we had a number of hats stands around and hat moulds, but these are a couple of small replicas, rather lovely. So I've called this house the House of Desire, but it's not necessarily that these are totally desirable things. There's some sort of jewels here and pots and plates, but trying to think more about the reason why Mum would build a collection of dolls' houses, and I'm sure there was an element of having control over a household, not having to rely upon my dad to add a job to his job list. With a doll's house she could get on and create interiors exactly as she wanted. It would give her some sort of control over what the house looked like, and she'd be able to share that vision of a perfect household with her friends, many of whom were also doll's house collectors. And there's some sort of Russian dolls here. She loved her trip to Russia, and then there's unexpected, very small items. This is a small can of Brasso. I've been photographing them and exploding them to sort of A2, A1 size. And because they're all handmade, they end up being, you know what they are, but they're slightly odd because they're not quite perfect and blown up. It shows the imperfections. Rather good. So the last two houses I've called the House of Strange, some odd items, and the House of Giants. Some of these things are just so out of scale, like this piano. But the piano, once you get the wax off, shows it's got a keyboard, opens up, got even some foot pedals, rather nice. I've got a small noddy, that's a bit strange. There's even a gollywog, which reflects the times in which these houses were put together. A rather lovely toaster. Don't know why we've got that in there. And probably my favourite is a replica plate of Prince Andrew's wedding to Fergie. And some very small items, some Colgate toothpaste, some Revlon hand cream and some baby oil. Fantastic. In the House of Giants, just pick out the one thing, there's sort of a funny sort of gonk in a bottle. Quite why you'd put quite why you'd create a gonk anyways is unexplainable, but putting it into a bottle, who knows. Anyway, so those are the 5 houses, or 5 categories I've put them into, and to finish off I'll just talk you through the remainder of the dig. So the block of wax you can see here is, I'd say, a third excavated. I'm in 2 minds now about whether to excavate the rest. I mean, I've been keeping all of the wax that I've been taking out, so I could always put it all back into another box and do it again, but I think it's rather lovely as it is. Got to various, I mean, you can't quite see it, but I'll show you to you. There's a Deloitte badge, the company I worked with for 30 years. There's even doors that open. For some reason there's an outsized toilet. I'm just on this side here. And also there's a tortoise whose head moves. Anyway, so I'll give it some thought about whether I excavate it more, but that's where we stand with the Battersea hoard. Thank you very much.